Welcome along to another big match build-up show, and so we're here again after some more disappointment at St Mary's last week or so. Yeah, I suppose the only positive to come out of the game after Charlie Austin's outburst, we will be seeing VAR next season. Firstly, let me know how you feel about that, whether you think it is good or bad for the game, or whether or not you think we will see it for ourselves next season. So I suppose on to this week's huge match at Craven Cottage. It feels like too much of a cliche. We're using it far too often, in my opinion. But I suppose a win could ease some pressure on Mark Hughes. But, of course, big news coming out of Fulham last week as they've appointed Claudio Ranieri as their new manager. And I think it's fair to say we're certainly feeling a lot less confident than we were 2 weeks ago. So, have we got the fear of the new manager bounce? Just find out how Fulham fans are feeling heading into the weekend too.
Yeah, they really could do. They probably should do, to be honest. They've got a Premier League winning manager coming in, and it's not just like a typical Premier League manager. It's a manager that won the Premier League with a club not unlike Southampton and not unlike Fulham. They're going to be feeling really, really confident having Ranieri coming in.
I honestly believe that Fulham are going to get the win they need. I think I'd have backed us for a win even before the sacking of Slav and the appointment of Claudio, because I genuinely believe, I think that we have got the quality of players, and I think they'll be determined to put a lot of wrongs right that have happened in the last 6 games. I just think that the new manager bounce will be important. Claudio is the kind of man to galvanise the dressing room.
So do stay tuned for the rest of the show for your travel advice and your away day pubs. And as usual now, the episode is available to download in the card above my head if you're watching on YouTube, and available on most audio platforms in the links below the show. Please feel free to join us and comment below, or join us live in the conversation on the YouTube premiere feature. I suppose now is time to get on with the show for our big match preview as Southampton prepare to face Fulham. So welcome along to our match build-up show, then our first half, and once again we've got a pioneer for mustaches back on the show this week. No fallen leaves outside, but in the comfort of his own home. John from the Saints FC podcast. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Yeah, you're welcome, Freddie.
I guess I suppose we better remind ourselves of yet another disappointing day at St Mary's. We'll talk about the Watford game first of all. 1-1 draw. How did you see it, first of all? I mean, it was almost sort of, fully expected from Saints to throw away a lead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like a match that had loads of incidents, loads of controversy, all sorts of things could have gone a different way. But if you just kind of presented it to a Saints fan at the end of the match without them having seen it, said, oh, it's going to be 1-1 and we're going to have thrown away a lead, everyone would be like, yeah, okay, normal Saints home game. But yeah, it was really disappointing. The Charlie Austin goal was just absolutely infuriating, and his one-man tirade against the referees has brought about VAR in the Premier League next season. I mean, let's just hope that we're still up there to experience it. Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? We've still got the fear of actually dropping into the Championship, but like you say, Charlie Austin's outburst, maybe it might be a chance of to turn the corner, but Watford weren't denied a Stonewall penalty as well. I mean, you could even look at it. We've been denied twice by atrocious refereeing referees against Watford in a calendar year. Like you say, the VAR is finally introduced next season. Yeah, it's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? Because the referees just aren't up to the same standard as the quality of the football. They're not as fast. They're not as mentally up to speed with the game. I mean, I wasn't totally convinced by VAR when they were first talking about it, but having seen it working at the World Cup and, just seeing the continual atrocious decisions that happen every week in the Premier League, I think, it's about time, isn't it?
I'm a big fan of VAR, and I think it's certainly going to be more beneficial for the game. It might take away the talking points, whether the referee's got the decision wrong or right, but on a scale that we've had it, it is about time that we've introduced it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might always end up thinking what might have been as Saints fans. You know, if we had VAR 3 or 4 seasons ago, would we have won the League Cup? You know, there's so many kind of like knock-on things. It's like the butterfly effect, isn't it? Had we got the 3 points against Watford last season, would Pellegrino have been sacked in the end? Would Hughes have kept us up? You know, you can just go on and on and on and on. But it's got to be a good thing. And I think overall Saints probably do worse from refereeing decisions than they do. I think the balance of the season is always kind of more in favour of the bigger teams. So anything that brings a bit of a leveller in terms of the referee's performance, I think has got to be a good thing.
But I mean, on the pitch, I mean, you have to say we pushed the ball around quite nicely. It was quite slick possession sometimes, but you know, once again, just inviting Watford back into the game.
Well, so I think this is the big question about kind of Mark Hughes and Southampton at the moment, is that at times under Mark Hughes, we look like a decent football team. We play decent football, especially going forward. We do create chances, but we're not finishing off the chances. And, you know, whether it's confidence, I mean, we've talked about this like so many times before, Freddie, so many times on the podcast. I'm just like a little bit clueless as to what the problem is. But, yeah, I think Hughes has improved the team going forward in the way they approach the games. It's definitely much more attacking mindset. I think we've got worse defensively. But you're right. You know, there were moments against Watford where we looked like we'd go up there and maybe score a couple of goals. And, you know, that probably kind of leads on quite nicely to the Fulham game, because I thought that was going to be a game where actually Fulham aren't up to much. Their defence is atrocious. We're playing like quite nice attacking football, but just missing our chances. I would have thought against Fulham we'd get more chances and more opportunities to score, but then that's all been turned on its head now as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll get to that in just a moment as well. But I mean, I guess the repercussions from the Watford game, we're going to have Ryan Bertrand suspended at Craven Cottage and a chance for Matty Targett to return to Fulham.
Yeah, I think Matt Targett's going to be well up for this one. You know, it would seem ludicrous if he doesn't end up with that place in the team, because he should definitely take up that position. I think he'll be fantastic. I think he'll do really, really well. I think the Fulham fans will be sat there mystified as to why they didn't get him. Matt Targett will probably be thinking, great, I've only played like 3 games this season. But hopefully he'll be well up for it, and we'll see a big performance from him.
Yeah, I think Matty Targett really endeared himself to the Fulham fans, and they were really craving for him to sign, Craven.
Craven for him at Craven Cottage.
I didn't even really look. That was a pun not intended, but yeah, Matty Targett be craving for to get on that pitch on Saturday. But there's some doubts over some fitness as well there up the other end of the pitch. Danny Ings came off injured in the first half against Watford, and Long's most certainly going to be out because they needed an operation.
I think Ings is going to be a big miss, but if it means that we can start someone like Obafemi in the side, and you know, I don't think there's any real danger in freshening things up. I mean, it's not like Long is on a massive, you know, run of scoring form and therefore he's going to be a desperate loss to the side. You know, Long does a fantastic job, you know, on a very kind of specific set of tasks, which can be quite effective against certain opposition. But it's got to be a good thing to actually. You don't want the young players to get opportunities through injuries to other players, but if that's what it's going to take, I think, you know, we should see Obafemi. Every time I've seen him on the pitch, he's looked good, which hasn't been enough in my opinion. We've not seen much of him, but every time he's been on the pitch, he's looked really useful.
Yeah, I guess, you know, he's had the week of his life as well, being called up to the Irish squad, actually, you know, fully going for Ireland, because there were some doubts whether he would call for Nigeria or England. So Obafemi's certainly on a high at the moment, but it could be a chance for Gabbiadini and Austin to start. I mean, if you look at paper, the tactics that we employed against Watford, it was almost a 4-3-3 going forward. Gabby playing wide right.
Yeah, well, it's something that we've talked about. I mean, the 4-3-3 is the formation that they play all the way through the youth sides up to the kind of like first team, and then the first team is where we just play a random set of formations depending on what Hughes is feeling like. I think it makes sense to do 4-3-3. It makes that kind of like pathway still open if we are going to bring players into it. And I think Hughes has got a point. Like, Gabbiadini did look better kind of in the wider position. And if you think about Gabbiadini's debut at St Mary's, that game against West Ham, he scored a fantastic goal cutting in from the left-hand side of the pitch. So I'd be up for seeing that. I think, you know, Charlie Austin will probably get the nod. over Obafemi, but I don't think Charlie Austin will last the full 90 minutes. So it could be another opportunity for him to come in.
Yeah, I'd certainly think that as well. Austin probably to start, and if you look at his history as well, history suggests that Gabbiadini plays his most fruitful, position in right midfield. He scored quite a few goals for Napoli whilst he was playing there, but he looked really dangerous the weekend, cutting in and then scoring, sort of a goal that was very reminiscent of the cup final. I want to see him back on the pitch again.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just got that knack to be in the right place at the right time when the ball seems to kind of like bounce around in the box, doesn't he? I mean, that goal which kept us up last season was perfect example of that. He also never really has a particularly tidy finish. He just kind of like swipes at it and it somehow goes in. But that's absolutely fine. They all count the same, don't they?
Absolutely. I guess I better get on to Fulham then. And like you said, the whole outlook, the whole approach has totally been turned on its head. Sort of a frantic week for Fulham last week. A change of manager. Jokanovic was favourite to be sacked, and indeed he did get sacked and replaced in exactly the same sort of hour in the same statement. Claudio Ranieri now the man in the hot seat, and suddenly we go to the game not so confident. If it had asked us maybe 2 weeks ago, we'll go to Fulham, we'll get a result, get a win, and certainly the pressure is off for the players and some of the fans. They don't give so much pressure. But do you think Fulham will have a new manager bounce?
Yeah, they really could do. They probably should do, to be honest. They've got a Premier League winning manager coming in, and it's not just like a typical Premier League manager. It's a manager that won the Premier League with a club not unlike Southampton and not unlike Fulham. They're going to be feeling really, really confident having Ranieri coming in. I have heard actually quite mixed response to what people are thinking Ranieri can do. So a lot of people are kind of doubtful whether he can deal with a relegation battle. But I think Fulham have played a really, really smart move. So obviously Fulham don't have the momentum or the form that Leicester had when Ranieri started at Leicester. But if you look at what he did at Leicester, the defence was just so heavily improved by him coming in. I mean, you had Wes Morgan being the centre of like the most effective defence in the division. And that takes some quite incredible coaching, I think. Wes Morgan is not a particularly special player, and since Ranieri's left, he's kind of it's been revealed, and so. I don't know whether he's going to have enough time to sort all of that out before the game against Southampton. Probably not. In which case, it might just be the mental boost of having Ranieri around could be quite positive for Fulham. But I don't think we need to go there fearing them. Not just yet, but I do think we need to fear what Fulham will be able to do under Ranieri for the rest of the season. I think they're going to start picking up wins. I think they're going to get much, much better in defence. Their formation will probably stay a lot more settled than it has done. Jokanovic, kind of like Hughes, has just been choppy and changing his defence every week. So, but also, can I just say, what a masterstroke that was from Fulham, sacking someone and having the replacement lined up straight away. What a dream world that is. I mean, such a shame that we don't have that kind of with like Les Reed and, have someone immediately to be brought in and, a direction to go in. We just seem to be a bit of a shambles in the way we're organising that side of things.
We seem to be dithering on our appointments at the moment, but it'd be interesting to find out how many times a club have actually changed their manager just before Saints are due to play them. I think, I can count maybe 3 times over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah. It does happen a lot. I mean, it used to be that we always kind of dealt the killer blow, didn't it? I remember Hoddle getting sacked after we beat Spurs 3-1. That was his reign coming to an end then. But I wonder if that's something to do with Saints' status, So the reason why managers get sacked after they've beaten us is because people are like, oh, well, if they've even lost to Southampton, then, it's got to go. But also it's kind of the thing where like Fulham will probably be thinking, wow, we've got 2 weeks of the international break, but also we've got Southampton. That's a really winnable game. We want to have a new guy in there in time to get those 3 points, which... It's a bit of a sad indictment of where we are.
And contrasting to our fixtures, really, Fulham have got some favourable ties over the next few weeks in a run up to Christmas, and we have to play sort of 5 of the top 6 best sides. But let's go into Fulham then. Let's have your prediction. I'm not feeling so confident because they've changed their manager. I think it's going to be the same as it was last weekend. Maybe Saints will take the lead, throw it away, Fulham have a bounce, and then suddenly we go to December with huge pressure on Mark Hughes.
You know what? I think every time someone's asked me for a prediction in the last few months, I've predicted Saints losing or drawing. Actually, this time, I think we might just get the win. I think we could do it. And I'd like to think that we're going to score 2 goals or more as well. So I'm going to go for a crazy, wild 3-1. And Obafemi's going to get a goal as well at some point in the second half.
Big prediction and big confidence. Let us know if you share the same confidence that John has. A big thanks.
I'm not normally this confident. I don't know. I've woken up on the wrong side of bed or something.
Well, let's see what happens on Saturday. But John, big thanks for joining us. And I'm sure we can see you again for the next episode of the Saints FC podcast.
Yeah, no worries, Freddie. See you soon.
As usual, a big thanks to John for joining us again this week from the Saints FC podcast. Be sure to come back early next week where hopefully John and Tom are discussing a win at Craven Cottage. But now it's time to tell you about your travel advice and your away day pubs this weekend. And lo and behold, South Western Railway are once again on strike this weekend. So trains in, to and from London are likely to be reduced, cancelled and delayed, perhaps at most an hour, but do check your journey before you leave. If the last London game we had is anything to go by, then there's likely to be at least an hour. And of course, the trains will be busier than usual because they've decided to strike on a rugby day too. There is England rugby on at Twickenham, so probably twice as busy on the trains, yippee. But if you do finally make it to Fulham Football Club, then the closest stations that you need are Putney and Putney Bridge. The Putney Bridge Underground station is served on the District line, whereas the Putney station is served on your National Rail, and you can get a train from Clapham Junction pretty much every 5 minutes. Both of them stations have quite a few local pubs nearby within at least a few hundred yards, so plenty to choose from. But the local ones by Putney Bridge Station, for the away fans, you're looking at the 8 Bells, the Temperance, the Golden Line and the King's Arms. But if you're on the Putney side, there's plenty to offer, including a Weatherspoons by the bridge. Who doesn't love a Weatherspoons on a match day? So I suppose after all that, now it's time to find out how Fulham fans are feeling heading into the weekend. So welcome along to our second half and our opposition outlook for this absolute 6-pointer at Craven Cottage this weekend. So joining us to give us the lowdown on the Lily Whites, I guess, after a very busy week indeed for Fulham, and Sammy from the Fulhamish Podcast and YouTube channel now. Sammy, good to see you again.
Yeah, cheers for having me back on.
There's only one place to start though, really. Claudio Ranieri taking the hot seat. I mean, there was no inkling to say or suggest that Jokanovic's position was under serious scrutiny, but suddenly Claudio Ranieri is replaced by Slavisa, and after sort of a run of 6 games without any wins.
Yeah, it all kind of came as a little bit of a shock. I don't really know exactly why it was, because he'd lost 6 in a row, and when you do that in the Premier League, your position's always under a lot of doubt. But Shade Khan, the chairman, had kind of gone out of his way to say that Slavisa's job was safe, and I don't know why. I just personally thought he was going to have this Southampton game to save his job, because it was a winnable game, and I think that Jokanovic could have won this game, no disrespect to Southampton, but I think that Jokanovic could have got himself out of a little bit of a hole, and with a little bit of time, we could have got ourselves out of the relegation zone. However, Shade obviously saw an opportunity to make a change. In comes Ranieri. Thankfully for us, the change was swift. I think we've learned from times in the past where we've sacked a manager and there hasn't been a clear or coherent succession plan. And I think the time before we actually appointed Jokanovic, it was maybe 6 to 8 weeks between managers, and we lost every single game in that transition period. So I think the chairman learned from those mistakes. We've got to get behind Ranieri now. I don't exactly know what to make of him. Yes, he won the league with Leicester. Of course, that is, the greatest achievement probably in football, let alone English football. So, he's a manager with an incredible pedigree from that point of view. But, there are still some doubts about Ranieri, his longevity, and he does seem to be a very likeable man. He fits with Fulham. He's very quaint. Fulham's very quaint as well. So I like it from that point of view, but there are downsides to Ranieri as well. And plus, I'm just a big Slav fan. So from that point of view, I'm just a bit gutted it ended the way it did. But hey, we have to move on.
Yeah, and I've seen some of your reaction videos and bits of your podcast, and you were having all sorts of appearances across radio and TV, all sorts of BT, that sort of thing. But it came out of the blue, really, didn't it? It's very rare that you see sort of managers immediately replaced on the day as well.
Yeah, exactly. But that is probably the one positive out of the whole thing. I think the reaction from the Fulham fan base, though, has been quite quickly to thank Slav. And rarely do you get a manager sacked where there is such an outpouring of love for the manager. Actually, the last time probably that happened was Ranieri, because Leicester fans were so quick to thank Claudio for what he did, and they were kind of at the same position, really. They were understanding as to maybe why it had to happen. They were in danger of going down, and they needed a boost, and it worked for Leicester that time. And it is kind of a similar situation here. He turned this club around. We were struggling in the Championship for season after season, and Slav came in and stopped us getting relegated for one to League One, which could have been an unmitigated disaster. And then within a season had us playing some of the most beautiful possession-based football that I've ever really seen as a Fulham fan. And he gave us our great day at Wembley. So we've got a lot to be thankful for him for.
Yeah, and it was an incredible run as well. Also helped by sort of one of our own as well at the tail end of last season from January. We went on a sort of a run of 23 games unbeaten, right? But
yeah,
do you think he deserved a bit more time? Was the announcement a bit harsh considering his achievements last year?
I mean, you do lose 6 in a row in the Premier League, and you are always under a little bit of pressure. Personally, I think he could have been given a little bit more time, but also the timing does make sense. He had an international break, Claudio, to, put his stamp on this Fulham team, and, it's a very common time for managers to be replaced. There isn't really another gap between now and March in terms of an international break, and, Christmas is chocker, and we have 5 winnable home games in a row, and it starts with you guys. After that, it's Leicester, it's West Ham, it's Wolves, it's Huddersfield. That's 5 massive home games for us, and if we can get a good amount of points, let's say we take the majority of the points in that, then we're in a good position going into the second half of the season. So yes, Slav maybe deserves more loyalty. He definitely deserved more loyalty, but I think that the chairman, if he had any doubts that Slav wasn't the man, now was the time to do it. So it's just football, really. And I'm sure Slav knows that better than anyone. He even said in his letter that he wrote to Fulham fans yesterday that he understood the chairman's decision. And maybe he said that, through gritted teeth. But I think everyone in football realises that the game they're in. And I'm sure Slav will be the first to take some other poor manager's job when they get the heave-ho.
You could say that your chairman is a bit of, somewhat ruthless. There's a lot of pressure on the manager to deliver as well, spending almost £100 million in the summer. And of course, Shahid Khan massively linked with the acquisition of Wembley and the FA earlier this year.
Yeah, he was. It's been a disappointing few months, really, for Shahid. Fulham are struggling. The Jacksonville Jaguars, his NFL team, aren't doing great either. And then he didn't get the Wembley purchase. He must have been thinking over the summer when Wembley looked likely and Jaguars had been to the playoffs and Fulham got promoted. He must have been thinking all his ducks were in a row. But that's sport, isn't it? It can just change in the blink of an eye. And he is quite ruthless, to be fair. He wasn't shy to make decisions last time we were in the Premier League, maybe a little bit too ruthless, if truth be told, and that was a big reason as to why we went down. I think he's just the right amount of not letting things fester too long, because if you do, you can end up in a real horrible situation if you give managers too much time, and then before you know it, it's March and you're trying to do a desperate saviour job. It's kind of what happened to you guys last season, although albeit it kind of worked. You do need to have a bit of ruthlessness if to be a chairman that is successful and oversees a longevity of a Premier League club.
And you've had sort of a weird concoction, sort of cocktail of various different players. I think you broke the bank twice, breaking your transfer record as well. And some of those players haven't quite hit the ground running as well. 5 points from 12 games. And like you say, the next few games really could make or break your season, do you think?
Yeah, those players haven't quite settled in. The main ones really are John Mikel Seri and Frank Zambo Anguissa, signed for Andre Frank Zambo Anguissa. He's our record signing. We signed him for the best part of £30 million from Marseille. Played in the Europa League final in May. He is a good player. He's still young. It's his 23rd birthday last week, so he's still a young player. Still trying to adapt to the Premier League. John Mikel Seri, though, is really the one that's just been a bit disappointing. He was dubbed the African Xavi by Xavi himself. High praise indeed. He was on the cusp of a move to Barcelona just over 12 months ago, and when he signed for Fulham, when he played that first game of the season against Crystal Palace, me and a few of the other mates I sit with at Fulham will look at each other going, is this guy for real? Why is he playing here? He's so good. But I think just his confidence has taken a knock from having such a porous defence behind him. I think he must be thinking that if he makes a single mistake, then it's probably going to end up in a goal. So we need those two players in particular after spending so much money to pick up their form. And we need Mitrovic to pick up his form a little bit as well. He was much better against Liverpool in the last game, but in the few games before that, I don't know if you saw the Huddersfield abomination on Monday Night Football, but Mitrovic was just so out of the game, didn't really look that interested, and he's lost that spark that he had all of last season and at the beginning of this season as well. So we do need a few of the high profile signings to start pulling in the same direction, but hopefully with a bit of a new manager bounce that can start on Saturday.
Yeah, let's get to Mitrovic first though before we get to a new manager bounce. But I mean, last weekend, the last round of fixtures, just like us, now we've heard that VAR will be in the Premier League next season. You could say you guys are aggrieved by referees last week too. Mitrovic's goal, I think in hindsight, if you look at it as closely, he's perhaps millimetres offside, but there is no way that the linesman can see that, and considering that he was not even up with play.
No, I think it's going to be a good thing for the Premier League VAR. It's going to take a few years for them to iron out all the creases. It's not going to be perfect at first, and there's probably still going to be just as much controversy because VAR isn't perfect yet. But the Premier League has to get behind it now and start. The only way you can really take out the problems is by having it live in action. You can have it in all the Carabao Cup games you want and under 21 friendlies, but really the only way it's going to be truly tested is in the Premier League at full pace. And yeah, Fulham potentially denied. Well, I think you are right that Mitrovic was marginally offside, but definitely it would have chalked off Salah's goal that came 13 seconds after. The main infringement being that Alisson, when he retook the free kick, was playing a rolling ball. I still don't think it should have even counted regarding the rolling ball, but the fact that Fulham's players were still celebrating and the referee has to take control a little bit there. It's a bit unfair when 5 Fulham players are up in the corner celebrating what they thought was a goal and he allows the play to continue. It's just a little bit mad, and a referee should have had a little bit more control in those circumstances. But hey-ho, we'd have probably lost anyway because we were away at Anfield. Even if we went 1-0 up, it would have been a tall order to get anything out of the game. So it is annoying, and obviously the Charlie Austin decision was really aggrieved for you guys, but also I can't remember, is it like maybe a Watford decision didn't go their way a few minutes before as well. It does all iron itself out in the end. It does all equalise, but I think that VAR will be a good thing. I was reluctant at first. I didn't think it would be good at first, but I think after the World Cup, I saw that how it can work.
I think, obviously with the greatest league in the world, as Charlie also said, it watched all over the world. Everybody sees it, and I think it's about time that we do introduce it, in my opinion, anyway. But as you touched upon just a second ago, do you think there'll be a good chance of a new manager bounce? I read some of your tweets from your co-host as well, from Jack. He said Ranieri, he might be playing a 4-2-3-1. Do you know how much he will be approaching this game?
I don't think we know too much yet. It's a bit of a lottery for all of us how we're going to line up on Saturday. That is Claudio's preferred formation, although he played a 4-4-2 with Leicester that brought him so much success, and maybe he's changed his philosophies a little bit from that Leicester team. We don't have the same kind of players as that Leicester team. I don't think we have that many much worse players than that Leicester team, barring the obvious examples of Kante and Mahrez. But no, I would have thought he'll go something along the lines of a 4-2-3-1. It wasn't too different to how Slav played anyway, and it probably does get the best out of our players. You imagine that John Mikel Seri is going to be pulling the strings in the middle. Mitrovic will almost definitely be up top, trying to avoid a 5th yellow card of the season, Mitrovic, which might change his game a little bit. The fact that he is just 1 yellow card away from a 1-match ban, and we don't have a single striker really in the squad apart from Mitro. And but when it comes to things like the back four, I'm utterly clueless as to how Ranieri is going to play. I imagine it's going to be a few weeks before even he knows what his best team is.
And there's lots of things on the agenda as well. The defence certainly to sort out. I think it's 31, 32 goals conceded so far this
31.
season. You've used 3 different goalkeepers, and it seems like Slav didn't quite know his best goalkeeper as well. And, you can suggest that Ryan Sessegnon not quite finding the gears so far this season. Do you think he may have a point to prove at the weekend?
Well, I think every player's got a point to prove because it's a new manager. I think Sessegnon actually has been quite impressive. He hasn't chalked up the goals that he did last season. He kind of lost that ice cool finishing, but actually, whilst the last 6 games have been abysmal, really, from a Fulham point of view, he's been one of the few bright points. He started the season slowly, but he's really now looking every bit a Premier League player. And he's got the most passion on the pitch. I know it's a bit basic to say that, but he really does. And he looks like his heart's in it the most, even when some of the other players don't really look like they care so much. So, Ryan will want to impress a new manager. It's new territory for him. He's only really had one manager in his football life, and now he has to adapt to life under another one.
And obviously, we will be seeing Matt Targett occupying that left back because Ryan Bertrand has got his 5th yellow card and he'll be missing the match. So, all that being said, though, Sammy, how do you think this game is going to go?
I honestly believe that Fulham are going to get the win they need. I think I'd have backed us for a win even before the sacking of Slav and the appointment of Claudio, because I genuinely believe, I don't know, I think that we have got the quality of players, and I think they'll be determined to put a lot of wrongs right that have happened in the last 6 games. Saints have been struggling to score. I imagine you'll manage to find a way through our leaky defence, though, so I reckon both teams will score in this game. But I just think that the new manager bounce will be important. Claudio is the kind of man to galvanise the dressing room and really lift their spirits. I think it's a bit unfortunate for you guys. I think if you'd have faced us a couple of weeks ago, I think you might have fancied you for a win the way we were playing so appallingly. But now I think at Craven Cottage, Claudio's first game, I reckon it's going to be a 3-1.
Don't like the sound of that, but I think if you had asked me about a week or 2 before, I certainly would have felt more confident going to Craven Cottage. Our away support certainly, the team has less pressure on their shoulders from our away support as well.
Yeah.
But before we do wrap up, as a bonus, I asked you sort of just beforehand, as it is the month of November.
Yes.
Can you tell me maybe some of your favourite memories of any old Fulham players with a magnificent Mo and, your chairman as well, a magnificent one himself?
Well, that was my answer, really. I can't think of too many Fulham players with a great tash. Dennis Adoy, who is our Belgian centre-back, has a wonderful beard. But, Shahid Khan's tash is unbeatable, really. And I remember when he bought the club off Mohamed Al Fayed in the press photos, Mohamed Al Fayed bought himself a fake tash and attached it to the bottom of his nose. And that was probably the most famous photo to come out of it, as they did a photo together on the pitch at Craven Cottage. So, nothing beats our chairman Shahid Khan's tash.
I've done a little bit of research as well, and maybe one of the greatest ever England strikers, Jimmy Hill.
Yes, of course.
He had a little tash once upon a time. Let us know if you're watching this, if you're old enough to remember. Bless Jimmy Hill. But thank you so much for joining us, Sammy, and just tell everybody where we can find you.
Make sure you subscribe to the Fulhamish YouTube channel. It's the new thing we're doing this season. There'll be a preview up with yourself either next couple of days, or it might even be up right now, which is well worth watching for a bit of a Southampton view on things. We also do fan cams, and we also do away day vlogs, and lots of other little things. A stats show as well every month, which is packed full of stats analysis as well. So if you just like following general football fan YouTube channels, then give Fulhamish a follow.
Excellent stuff, mate, and we'll catch up soon.
Cheers, man.
A big thanks then to Sammy from the Fulhamish Podcast this week. Do be sure to check out all their pages for all your Fulham needs, and head over to their YouTube channel for all of their match reaction videos too. But before we do sign off, I want to draw your attention to our Movember page. There is a reason why I look like a scruffy git this month, and it is all to raise awareness and some support to prevent prostate cancer, testicular cancer, men's mental health and male suicide prevention. So please do donate what you can. And if you do fancy testing your knowledge on some Saints magnificent mows, then head over to our Instagram to test your knowledge and get involved over there as well. But that pretty much does wrap up this week's show. Do let us know how you think we're going to fare against Fulham. Big thanks for watching. Thanks for listening along. And all I've got to say now is, come on, you Saints.